Good morning or good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ming Huo. I'm from Northeast Normal University in China. And today I will present findings from a study that applies the job demand resources model and the psychological network analysis to rural English teachers in China. I will focus on where burnout is most concentrated, how job demand and resources connect to burnout, and what these patterns mean for auto field teaching and policy. Here is the outline of my presentation. I will begin with the motivation and the research questions, highlighting why we focus on rural teachers and the role of auto field teaching within the JDR, the Job Demand and Resources Framework. And second, I will introduce the data and the methods, drawing on the National Survey of Rural Teaching Workforce and explaining the network analytic approach. Third, I will present the results, focusing on the central and the bridge nodes and whether the network differ between in-field and out-of-field teachers. And finally, I will turn to interpretations, implications, and limitations of the study, what these findings mean for policy and practice, and where future research should go. Okay, let's move to the first part, motivation and research questions. First, why this study? First, China has made enormous progress in education, but the rural-urban achievement gap remains persistent, since about half of the school-aged children still live in rural areas. This gap directly affects national development and equity. Second, teaching burnout is a major risk to both retention and instructional quality. When teachers experience high stress, they are more likely to leave the profession or to teach less effectively, which in turn deepens inequality in rural education. Third, in rural schools, auto-field teaching is highly prevalent. Many teachers are assigned to teach subjects outside of their training or their subjects. For instance, a history major may be asked to teach English. This practice may function as an additional job demand, compounding stress and raising the risk of burnout. Finally, despite these realities, there is a clear research gap. The job demand resources framework has been widely applied to burnout, but the specific role of auto-field teaching has rarely been examined using a network lens. This study addresses this gap by mapping how job demand, job resources, burnout symptoms, interconnection for in-field versus out-of-field English teachers in rural China. Our analysis is grounded in the job demand and the job resources model, which distinguish between the pressure of work, job demand, such as workload or student management stress, and the supports that help teachers cope, such as collaborations or job satisfactions. We also include personal resources like self-efficacy, which reflect the teacher's own capacity. Traditionally, job demand resources study treats these factors in a linear cause effect fashion. But here we use a network perspective. In a network, the relationships are multi-directional and reciprocal. Some nodes are more central, meaning they are highly connected to others, and these central nodes tend to drive the whole system. We also examine bridge nodes, which act like pathways linking two different clusters. For example, workload stress might connect the job demand cluster directly to emotional exhaustion in the burnout cluster. Conceptually, we model the system as two communities. One is the JDR community, which include job demand, job resources, personal resources. And the other is the burnout communities, which include emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and reduced accomplishment. By examining central and bridge nodes between these communities, we can identify the main drives and the connectors of burnout among rural teachers. In this study, I have 3 research questions. The first research question asks which nodes are most essential in the networks, meaning which job demand resources or personal resources are most strongly connected to others. Central node act like a hub, so intervening on them can influence the whole system. For instance, if emotional exhaustion is central, it can trigger other burnout symptoms. My second research question focuses on the bridge nodes linking the JDR cluster within the burnout cluster. These variables act like the gateway through which stress or protection flows, such as workload stress, bridging to emotional exhaustion, or job satisfaction, bridging negatively to reduce burnout, thereby pointing to effective intervention targets. The last research question examined whether the overall structure or strengths of the network differ between in-field and out-of-field teachers. If different, out-of-field status would fundamentally alter how demand resources connect to burnout. But if similar, it would suggest that the same dynamics operate while out-of-field teachers simplify carrying out higher burdens within the same framework. And the second part, I will talk about my data and the methods. Our data come from a national survey of rural teaching workforce, which remain the most comprehensive nationwide data sets on rural teachers in China. The survey was conducted across 35 counties in 18 provinces and cover 341 schools. For this study, we narrowed the focus to rural lower secondary English teachers. English teaching requires high subject knowledge and language proficiency, so mismatching are particularly consequential. The analytic sample consists of 2,475 teachers in total. Among them, 2,119 were in-field teachers, holding an English degree and teaching only English, while 356 were out-of-field teachers. Those have the degree was in another subject, but who were assigned to teach English exclusively. The teacher's average age was about 36 years old, and the majority, around 82% of the teachers are female. Let's have a look about the measures. In my study, there have 4 types of measures. The first one is job demand, including average weekly teaching hours, reported workload stress, and students' management stress. And the second category is job resources, including collaboration with colleagues, quality of teaching students' relationship, adequacy of school resources, perceptions of organizational justice, broader school environments, and overall job satisfaction. And the third category is personal resources. We assesses 2 forms of self-efficacy, classroom management efficacy and instructional efficacy. The last category is burnout. We apply the 9-item burnout inventory, which covers 3 dimensions: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and diminished personal accomplishment. This structure aligns with the widely used model of burnout. All the schools show very good reliability in the data sets, giving us the confidence in the robustness of these measures. And for the analytics strategy, to estimate the burnout network, we follow the rigorous analytic strategies. First, we apply a covariance residualization. That means before estimating the network, we regressed each variable on demographic and professional characteristics, such as age, gender, ethnicity, education level, marital status, professional title. And the second, we apply a non-paranormal transformation to correct the non-normal distribution, and then estimate a Gaussian graphic model, the GGM. This was regularized using glossal, and model selection was guided by extended Bayesian information criteria. Together, these steps ensure that the network are parsimonious and stable. And the third part for centrality, we estimate the expected influence index, which capture both positive and negative connections and reflect the overall impact of the node in the system. For bridges, we calculate bridge expected influence, showing how demands and resources connect into burnout symptoms. Fourth, we assess the accuracy and stability through the bootstrapping. Confidence intervals around edge weights and correlation stability coefficients for centrality exceeded recommended threshold, confirming the results are robust. Finally, to compare in-field and out-of-field teachers, we use the network comparison test, which evaluates differences in structure and global strengths between two groups. Let's have a look of the results. This is how the network looks like. And as you can see, in a network, it composed of two parts. The first one, you see there's a nodes, the circles, they are called nodes, which representing the variables. And you can also see the line between the nodes. They represent the edge or maybe the associations between the variables. And you can find that some of the lines are blue and some of the lines are red. It means that the blue lines means the two variables have positive correlation coefficients, and the red lines representing the negative correlation coefficients. But I need to emphasize that the edge representing partial or regularized partial correlation coefficients, which means the spurious correlation coefficients can be eliminated. Okay, let's have a look of the results in detail. First, according to in terms of the density, out of 91 possible connections, we observed 68 non-zero edge in the in-field network and 60 in the out-of-field network. This indicates that both groups have moderately dense network with many meaningful interconnections among demands, resources, and burnout symptoms. And the second one is the most consistent and the strongest cross-cluster pathway was between workload stress and emotional exhaustion. This reflects how heavy preparation and the teaching load directly drain teachers' energy and trigger burnout. Something very significant in rural schools where workload are already very high. And the third one I want to mention is that the role of job resources was mixed. In some cases, resources such as teacher collaboration and a supportive school environment showed protective, negative association with exhaustion. But in other cases, the links were weak and even slightly positive. This suggests that resources do not uniformly buffer burnout. This effect may depend on context or maybe depend on quality. And finally, within the burnout cluster itself, the strongest tie was between the depersonalization and the diminished accomplishments. In other words, once teachers start feeling emotional detached from their students, they are already more likely to feel ineffective in their work. The next one, let's turn to node centrality. As I mentioned, that node centrality was measured by expected influence, which shows which variable are most connected and therefore most influential in the system. And first, we can have a look that emotional exhaustion, where is B1 here, B1, emerge as the most central burnout node in both groups. This means exhaustion is not just another symptom. It sits at the core of the burnout, with the potential to activate or intensify other symptoms, such as depersonalization and reduced accomplishment. The second, within the JDR clusters, the two efficacy measures, which is PR1 and PR2, instructional efficacy and classroom management efficacy, were the most central nodes. Their high centrality reflects how teachers' confidence in their teaching and classroom control is tightly connected to both demands and resources. In other words, personal resources are highly embedded in the system. And the third one is when comparing groups, we found that workload stress play a more central role among auto-field teachers. This suggests that the subject mismatch may amplify the significance of workload, making it one of the strongest drives of exhaustion and strain in the auto-field groups. So which is JD3. You can see that in JD3 that auto-field, the red line represents the auto-field teachers group, and the green line represents the in-field teacher group. And we can see that for JD3, the workload stress the auto-field teachers they have much higher node centrality compared with the in-field teacher group. Let's have a look at next one, the bridge centrality. The bridge centrality shows how clusters of variables, JDR cluster on one side and the burnout symptom cluster on the other side are linked. The most important bridge coming from burnout cluster was emotional exhaustion. So in this group, we can see that the B1, B2, and B3, they are from one communities. And for the rest of the variables, they are coming from another communities. And for the burnout communities, B1 has the highest bridging centrality, which means that emotional exhaustion is the main channel through which burnout symptoms connect back to job demand and the resources. Once teachers feel exhausted, the effect ripple outward into their perception of workload, support, and self-efficacy. On the other side, the strongest positive bridge from the JDR cluster into burnout were all job demands. We can see that it is JD3, JD2, and JD1. It's workload stress, student management stress, teaching hours. These factors act as the entry points through which stress crosses into the burnout cluster, especially by feeling emotional exhaustion. In contrast, job satisfaction, which is JD6, is here, JD6. Job satisfaction functions as the strongest negative bridge. Its protective effect was most visible in reducing depersonalization, which means teachers who feel satisfied are less likely to becoming detached or cynical towards their work or to their students. Finally, although personal resources such as efficacy were highly central within the JDR cluster, they show very little direct bridging into burnout. This suggests this impact is more internal, shaping how teachers manage demands and use resources, rather than serving as direct buffers against exhaustion or depersonalization. The last step is to make network comparisons. We investigate whether burnout network differ between in-field and out-of-field teachers and find no significant difference in overall structure and no significant difference in global strengths, and also no significant difference between edge level association after applying the homo-Buffaroni corrections. In other words, auto-field status does not fundamentally alter the burnout network, as the same underlying dynamics apply to both groups. However, certain nodes, such as workload stress, playing a relatively strong role for auto-field teachers, making some pathways more significant within a stable architecture. Let's move to the last part of my presentation, the interpretations, implications, and limitations. Auto-field teaching in the context primarily amplified workload and preparation demands, as teachers assign outside their specialties, must spend more time compensating for knowledge gap and managing unfamiliar subjects. However, heavy demands are not unique to out-of-field teachers. In rural Chinese schools, both groups face significant non-teaching duties, such as supervising boarding students, completing administrative paperwork, and handling multi-subject teaching due to staffing shortage. This structure pressure creates a high demand environment for everyone, which helps explain why the networks of in-field and out-of-field teachers do not differ structurally. Instead, the effect of out-of-field teaching is indirect. It magnifies the existing workload exhaustion pathway, intensifying burnout without fundamentally altering the system. I have two implications of my study. The first policy implication is to make workload reduction a top priority. Since our network results identify workload stress as the strongest bridging connections, the bridge connecting job demand to emotional exhaustion, reducing workload is therefore central to disrupting the pathway into burnout. This can be achieved by cutting back administrative or non-instructional tasks, such as paperwork, supervision, and reporting, that drain teachers' energy while providing support staff to handling these duties. It also requires a fair redistribution of responsibilities. For instance, limiting the number of grades or subjects assigned to each teacher and ensuring preparing time is built into timetables. Addressing workload directly strikes at the very bridge where burnout spreads, making it the most effective point of intervention. My second implication is emphasize the protective role of job satisfaction, which emerged as the strongest negative bridge in the network, particularly buffering against the depersonalization. Teachers who are satisfied with their work are less likely to detach from students or lose emotional engagement. To enforce this buffer, intervention should target both identity and capability. Rural tailored professional development and upskilling for out-of-field teachers can build competence and strengthen professional identity, helping teachers remain engaged even when teaching outside of their specialties. At the same time, school and policymakers can enhance satisfaction by fostering, such as maybe the support from colleagues, ensuring fair and transparent evaluation, and providing recognition for rural contributions. Symbolic gestures such as maybe an award or public acknowledgement can complement financial incentives by making teachers feel valued. In short, raising job satisfaction and reinforcing professional identity is not optional. It is critical safeguard against burnout. In conclusion, this study highlights 5 key insights. Emotional exhaustion emerge as the most essential symptoms of burnout, serving as the entry point into the broader syndrome. Workload stress proved to be the main bridge linking job demand and burnout, making it the most powerful target for intervention. By contrast, job satisfaction functions as a protective bridge, buffering against the depersonalization and sustaining engagement. While out-of-field teaching amplified workload and preparation demands, it did not fundamentally alter the network structure. Rather, it intensified existing pathways. Taken together, the policy message is clear. Sustaining rural education requires reducing workload burdens and strengthening teacher satisfaction and professional identity, striking directly at the most influential nodes in the system to reduce burnout and support long-term teacher retention. Thank you for your listening. Thank you.